Hello, today we're going to take a look at using the STL mesh data that we've created in the Geomagic Capture for Solidworks software and converting that into a CAD model. So the first thing that we're going to want to do, and what you'll notice here on the screen, is that our STL mesh has been turned into it's a mesh with a bunch of different colors on it. Now, if for some reason you haven't quite gotten to this mesh point, you'll already have scanned your object and you're going to want to go through the first few steps. So over here on the left hand side, to give you a quick recap of those steps, that would be align your objects. So align all of your point clouds. Then optimize that alignment if you haven't selected that in the align objects function already. Then you'll want to not use the wrap function, and don't worry about the point tools, but use the merge function. So you highlight all of the scans that you've taken and then merge them, and what that does is that takes all your point clouds and it merges them into one solid 3D file. All those point clouds will still be there, so if for some reason something didn't work right or you weren't happy with something, you can go back and do it. For this demo, I have deleted mine, so I just have this one scan point, or this one mesh here. But once you merge them, it will be called merged 1 or merged 2, and then you can rename it to whatever you want to. But that's how you get to this point that we're at here, short of creating regions. So the next thing that we're going to want to do once you go in and use these first few tools is you'll want to create regions. So let's press this regions tool here, and then we're going to want to select our mesh, and we're going to want to create regions on this mesh. So we have a couple options. We have connecting region width and curvature sensitivity. Then we also have the minimum region area. All of these values can be adjusted, and they really depend upon the part that you're scanning. Different parts, such as larger, more faceted parts, may require less sensitivity or more sensitivity than, say, smaller faceted parts, depending upon what you're dealing with. The easiest statement to say is play around with this function, the curvature sensitivity. What I have found is that when you're dealing with something like, say, different parts that flow into other parts, for instance, this fillet right here also flows into this boss. You'll want to make sure you have your sensitivity turned way up so that those regions are identified separately. Notice the different color patterns between the two areas. If you have more jutting out bosses, not a lot of this flowing together-ness, you can turn that curvature sensitivity down. You're left with a lot less regions, and it can make for a little bit easier modeling experience. So nonetheless, once you check that off, it's going to go through creating the regions, which we'll let it go ahead and do real quick, and then from there we'll move into taking this file and turning it into a 3D model. So once this is done, the next step we're going to go through is our Extrusion Wizard. Our Extrusion Wizard is going to allow us to take this basic shape, and just like in SolidWorks, you start out with your basic shape, do some smart dimensioning or whatnot, and then extrude out your full model, right? So we're going to do the same process here. We're just using a wizard to actually help us along and get started with this mesh. So we'll go to our fit extrusion function and come down to our model, and then we're just going to use this smart selection. So there's a few different ways to select data. I like using the smart selection tool. It looks for regions that are similar and helps to easily find profiles. So we'll just leave it right there. That should be good. Then that's it. We'll let it go ahead and work through the process of building out this extrusion. It's automatically going to guesstimate where the extrusion should be, and what we'll notice is this one may not work 100%. So for instance, you see this guy over here, this isn't quite right. Well, that's fine. Sometimes this doesn't happen, and that's why I like showing this part, because this kind of goes through all the basic necessities that you'll need to know to make everything work correctly. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to, if you see something like this where it's not 100% capped off, we'll just create this as a sketch for now. So we'll just tell it to be a sketch and then press OK. So it's going to build us out a sketch. That way we don't have to worry about any build errors or it just creating a surface. Once this is done, we can begin using our standard Solidworks tools. So for instance, we're going to work on editing this sketch. And to edit this sketch, I want to use maybe our power trim and get rid of a few of these unwanted pieces. And then we could use our corner trim to trim these guys together. And then we could possibly use our fillet tool to come in and build out our fillet, which looks like I got my scaling off a little bit. So what we can do is delete that off, and then make that guy a little bit bigger. So you can add precision to this model now. That was just our basic little cleanup, but now what we can see is this is a SolidWorks sketch. We can add any smart dimensioning or whatever we want to finish building this out. But from here, we'll move on to our Extrusion Wizard. And again, this is more if you have some sort of needs to be, to repair the sketch before moving on to the next step. Because in most instances, you should see this work correctly, and you wouldn't have any sort of issues like what we're seeing in this particular part. I originally created this part in millimeters and then converted it in inches. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of that here on the screen. Anyways, nonetheless, now we have our extruded boss. So let's just hide him for now and move on to the next function, which is our, if we go to our Geomagic Capture tab, being able to create freeform surfaces. So when we create a freeform surface, we have a few tools. One of which, if you just grab your region, it's going to automatically start creating a freeform through that region. Really helpful. This is great, really easy to use. So we have an accuracy slider. Then we have a few ways to build out the surfaces. Generally, I recommend just leaving it as a new surface and then working with this as you would a standard freeform inside of SolidWorks. So the next thing we have our accuracy. Then we also have enlargement. Enlargement's really useful, especially if you're familiar with doing Boolean cuts inside of SolidWorks. You need some extra play around the outside to be able to get everything to work correctly. So that's what that enlargement tool is used for. Once we do that, it'll go ahead and build us out a freeform surface. When we press our checkbox, and then now if we show our main body, we can come in and do a intersection from that this guy, and that, and then we go ahead and intersect the two. Then we'll exclude that region, and then hit our checkbox, and now we have our surface. So we can see that's a very quick and easy way to come in and build out our 3D shape and just start working on it. From here we have your basic tools. We have cylinders, which is just as simple as coming in, selecting a surface that should be a cylinder and telling it to fit a cylinder. Then we have the same pieces such as cones, cones, bosses, spheres, sweeps, if you need to do a swept surface. All these different pieces and parts are here right inside of the tool. This is your basic getting started and should help you to get up and running with the software, and covers really just the main necessities to understand and the key concepts as to what you will be doing to have success modeling your meshes into 3D CAD objects using the Geomagic Capture toolbar. Thank you for taking a look at this video. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us here at Go Measure 3D. Thank you and have a great day.